It's Wednesday, July 10th, 2024. And of course, there's all kinds of things happening in the world as always. And I'll be here to tell you about them. Biden is aiming to prove U.S. and global doubters wrong with his NATO speech. So he addressed the world leaders at the 75th NATO summit and definitely pledged more aid to Ukraine and all along those lines. So that is definitely something that is still in the news as well. An Israeli strike kills at least 29 at a Gaza displacement center, or a displacement camp, I should say, and dozens were killed as four schools in the last 4 days struck in Gaza. So definitely, this is something else that is going on that a lot of people are paying attention to in the world and all along those lines. And I've heard of people trying to smuggle many unusual things, but definitely this is a very unusual one. I think my dad might have tried to do it with a turtle, but I don't know anybody that tried to go through customs with 100 live snakes. But apparently that's what happened in China. A man was caught smuggling 100 snakes in his trousers into China. So apparently he was trying to smuggle them into China instead of out of China and all along those lines. So China Customs catch the man trying to smuggle those into China into his pants and all along those lines. So I don't know if he was moving to China. I don't know if this was some sort of attack on China. This will be interesting to see what folks have got to say about this as well. And Beryl just made history. It has forecasters concerned about what could happen next because apparently it's doing one of those very unusual path kind of things. So we'll see what happens in terms of weather and in terms of its impact on folks and all along those lines. I think we might get some rain based off of it, but not anything of hurricane strength, if I remember hearing the weatherman correctly yesterday. And sanctions on Russian oil brought Putin and Modi closer, and Zelensky blasts India's Modi for embracing the bloody criminal Putin. So definitely that's something else that is going on in the news. And in Australian news, an Australian ranger shot dead a 14-foot crocodile that killed a girl. So definitely that's something else that is going on, and that person will probably get some hero kind of welcome there in Australia since they won't have to worry about that particular crocodile anymore and all along those lines. And a Moscow court has ordered the arrest of Alexei Navalny's widow who lives abroad. So they have ordered the arrest of Yulia uh, Navalny, and that is the widow of the Alexei Navalny. And like I said, she's living abroad, but I guess they're going to try to find a way to get her and all along those lines. And NATO is to appoint a representative in Kiev to deepen U.S. ties. So NATO has vowed lasting support for Ukraine, but won't promise membership. So definitely this will be interesting to see how this goes as well. And apparently, the Justice Department is leading efforts among federal, international, and private sector partners to disrupt covert Russian government operated social media bot farms. So apparently, there is folks that are doing attacks to the internet as well. So Putin has set up a Terminator-style Skynet AI network to attack the U.S. and the DOJ is disrupting the Russian bot farms, which is used to spread disinformation. So that is something else that folks are paying attention to as well. Just like folks are trying to figure out what was going on with Le Pen, as apparently they blew their chance at leadership, and I think they finished in third or something like that. And Starmer is to urge NATO members to boost defense spending amid the UK review. So UK Starmer, the new leader of that country, is committed to increasing defense spending to 2.5% of their GDP. So definitely, this is something that he is saying their defense spending commitment is cast iron. So definitely, that is something else that I'm sure the folks in Ukraine will be quite glad about, and all along those lines. So definitely, this is something else going on. And it looks like Starmer is also praising Abbott and hails the diverse comments in the first speech to Parliament as Prime Minister. And it looks like there is a new MP that is in charge. So it'll be interesting to see how their kind of police system goes as well. So, speaking of the police, the UK police are searching for a man suspected of killing three women with a crossbow. So, the triple murder victims are families of a BBC commentator, corporation says, as police search for a suspect. So, the BBC journalist family members were killed in a suspected crossbow attack. So, that's something else that folks are paying attention to in the news as well. So, like I said, a lot of things happening on the international front. Oh, by the way, Rwanda is saying it doesn't have to repay the UK for its scrapped migration plan. So, no UK refund for canceling £270 million Rwanda plan, according to Kagame. So, Rwanda is definitely hitting it. It won't reimburse that money that was paid for a deportation deal. And it looks like that is just maybe some money that they won't get back. But we'll see what happens in that regards and all along those ways and everything. And like I said, folks are now trying to pay attention to what Iran's moderate new leadership will do in terms of its relationship to the world and all along those lines as well. So definitely, there's a lot of things that are going on in the world area, and right now we're going to check out what's going on in the U.S. as well and see what folks have got to say. But it looks like Biden support is actually slipping in the deep blue New York. So folks are saying that even New York is a battleground state now as well. And there are even some people that are projecting or predicting that if things don't change and if Biden possibly doesn't drop out of the race, that there could be a Trump landslide. And that could be very interesting, even for some of the candidates like Mark Robinson and others, because that could sweep them to victory and all along those lines. But definitely it'll be interesting to see what that goes on in that space. And Trump's VP reveal maybe this week. We'll find out if not, because we do know that they are getting ready for the Republican convention. And apparently Trump took aim at Kamala Harris and teased the idea of Marco Rubio at a Florida rally. So apparently he aired a lot of grievances at the Florida rally, and I don't know if anybody watched it, but I did not get a chance to see it. So we'll see if anybody else caught it as well. And the Gateway Church has settled a lawsuit alleging child sex assault and harassment. The lawyer for the megachurch pastor Robert Morris blamed the 12-year-old girl for their inappropriate sexual conduct. So definitely that's what is going on in that case. So that's one of those cases that is out there as well. And apparently an attempted carjacker shot outside Supreme Court Justices Sonia Sotomayor's house. So definitely looks like a carjacking was taking place, and it wasn't that far from her house. So the U.S. Marshal shot the man that was trying to do the carjacking attempt. So definitely that'll be interesting to see what folks have to say. And like we said on yesterday, Blomberg gave that $1 billion gift for free medical school applications, but apparently the gift is not to all folks. So we got to figure out what the restrictions are and all along those lines. But it does look like it's going to cover quite a few students' medical bills. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on in that way as well. And DC is under an excessive heat warning on Wednesday. The heat index temperature could exceed 110 degrees right there in the DC area as their sweltering week continues. I think I heard we might get up to a feel like temperature of 105 or 106 down here in North Carolina. So definitely it looks like there's going to be a lot of very interesting heat related things going on, because Las Vegas is even eyeing a record of fifth consecutive day over 115 degrees as their heat wave continues as well. So it looks like the heat wave is going on in a number of places as well. And a second degree manslaughter charge was filed against a trooper in a deadly crash court document detailing their history of speeding and crashes on duty. So the Minnesota trooper was accused of driving 135 miles an hour before a crash that killed a teen in that area. So definitely it'll be interesting to see what goes on in that way and all along that kind of space. So like I said, you're going to bring in the guests and all along those lines. And by the way, if you're wondering about the weather, Colorado State University is now calling for an even more active Atlantic hurricane season. So CSU experts are increasing the hurricane forecast for the Atlantic season, and Beryl is likely just the harbinger of a hyperactive season. So maybe we're going to get a lot of storms. We haven't had one here in North Carolina yet, but we do know that sometimes we get those and all along those lines. So I'm going to bring in some folks, including Shaquille and Rick Rosner, as well as Toby. Nick may join us, as well as Sasha Starr, and all along those lines. I saw that y'all were in the news, Shaquille, because you had that ranger that killed that rogue crocodile that had killed that young lady and everything. And I'm still trying to figure out, and maybe y'all can help me figure this out and everything, but why would anybody try to smuggle 100 snakes into China is beyond me. But apparently somebody tried to do that, got caught by Chinese customs and everything, and that's a whole lot of snakes to be put in your pants or however they were trying to smuggle them and everything. So I'm still trying to figure out. I've heard of people, including some folks that I know personally, that have smuggled small things out like turtles and other things, but a snake and a whole bunch of them, that sounds very crazy to me. But I don't know y'all's thoughts on this.
It's actually quite common. And if you ever watch like Border Security, the show that we have here, they actually show people trying to smuggle our wildlife out of the country all the time, and it's quite sad. It's very cruel to these animals. It's illegal, but even if it was legal, it's not the point. It's actually really cruel to these animals, which shouldn't happen. And we obviously care about our wildlife. I think they're just prized possessions for people over there. So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But like I said, I was just trying to figure out that still seems like a lot and all along those lines. Hey, Rick, I was watching one of your cohorts, and all along those lines, I was actually watching Stephen Colbert, and I know that sometimes we talk about this notion of AI and what AI can do, and apparently there is, and Jacoby may have some thoughts around this too, but there is efforts to actually make robots look more friendly, because one of the reports he was talking about was they are trying to put robots with like a actual human smile-like face and everything. So it kind of reminds me of the old science fiction and all along those lines, but they were going to try to make it look more human and all along those lines. So what is your thoughts? Because I know you're one in the...
So, Jacoby's familiar, and probably everybody here is familiar with the term uncanny valley, which is there's a maximum creepiness level when you start making CG people or robots look human. Like if you make them look less human, their face is just like a sketch with like two eyes and a mouth, and it looks like a cartoon. People are okay, but then when they start to look human, they get freaky looking, and then you have to get beyond that and make them look really human. If you make them just look a little human, it creeps people out.
Yeah, I got
that
you.
sounds like the progressives, though, doesn't it? The progressives don't have a very human look about them. Yeah, this is where, like you brought up about the election in New York. Now, I would say here and now that if Donald Trump were to win Virginia or New Jersey, I'd be prepared to say at that point the race is over, because you know that if he wins either of those, he's going to win a whole heap else. But if he wins New York, and you know what? This is the progressives' fault. It's because of the gaslighting. It's because of the sort of thing that Jacoby always does. Gaslights people into not believing what they can see with their own eyes.
Well, I mean, Jacoby...
I was just going to talk about the AI and all the stuff, looking realistic. I had just read an article today that Japan was going to try and use AI robots to start navigating the trains on the different train tracks. All this stuff is on the way. Rick, you know as well as I do the sex dolls that are out there that they try and make look realistic. However, they're still using they're going to use that same molding on top of AI robots. So it's going to be a whole crazy thing coming down the pipe, everything you were talking about, Mark.
You can buy those deluxe sex dolls now, and they'll talk to you, but they're like Teddy Ruxpin, where they'll just say pre-canned stuff. But
that makes sense, because one of the commercials that I know is a national commercial, if I remember correctly, because it does star a relatively well-known actress, if I remember correctly, is the one where they have to take a pause because the robot is asking them whether they are human or not, and everything along those lines. And they're going like, well, how do I prove that I'm human? So that might be something that we have to get into, where we have to actually prove to the robot that we are the ones that are human. So we can literally do a whole show here on Pod TV, and folks might try to figure out if Shaquille, Jacoby, myself, and Rick are actually humans or robots, and they could maybe even take a bet. I know that
Jacoby's definitely a progressive robot, because he doesn't have an original thought, and then he just continually tries to gaslight us, like he did last night, trying to tell me that the guests that I have, that I bring on, he gets along really well with them, and they have magnificent, fun shows, which is just absolute nonsense.
But in terms of AI, Mark, yeah, that's coming down the pipe. It's just wild, and some of the things that they have, like there's I think it's in either Japan or China that's going on right now, And there's actually a video trying to work on how a robot, is unable to be kicked over. There's a little bitty robot that people walk by and kick and try and see if they can knock it over, and you see how it stumbles and readjusts itself. But that's dealing with robotics. But then again, you throw in AI. They've created Rick, you might have seen the videos where you have the robotic dog with the flamethrower in the back now, and also
Oh no, I haven't seen Dog Plus Flame. I've seen the devil dog that was used in Black Mirror that comes from Boston Scientific. I assumed it was the same company that made that little balancing guy that you can try to kick over and you can't because it's so balancy. My family and I went to the Peterson Automotive Museum yesterday. They have a display of beautiful lowriders. Lowriders are California cars that are like super beautiful, low to the ground, made, covered with candy flake paint with hydraulics so they can jump in the air and tilt and do all this stuff. And I realized the next step in the lowriders is to stick AI brains in them so they can do their own dancing. And you're going to end up with transformer cars that are, going to do
Transformers.
brains in everything.
Is it going to be Transformers? Is it going to be Knight Rider? Because both of those were talking cars and everything.
We saw Knight Rider was in the museum, and we're going to have for real Knight Rider. Plus, we're going to have AI. You're going to get SaaS from all your appliances. Your refrigerator is going to say, "Hey, fat ass," put away the da da da, and it'll.
No more donuts.
So it's good, like stop us from getting donuts. Hey, Nick, I'm glad you joined, because one of the things that I saw, and I know you and Kim bring this up sometimes, is the misuse sometimes of COVID funds and all along those lines. And I saw a local story, meaning right here in Durham, North Carolina, where a Durham man right here in this area apparently used millions of COVID relief for, but get this, both his mortgage and for plastic surgery. So apparently he got the money and he used it for those two items.
Isn't that a right-wing conspiracy theory? Because when we all said, if you're going to hand out all this money, it's going to be misused, we're all shot down because, oh no, how can you go against the establishment? So isn't this a conspiracy theory? Have you become a right-winger all of a sudden, Mark?
Hey, Mark, it was misused. It's kind of funny because I'm watching Shaquille. He's trying to goad Jatovy into a fight, and Jatovy keeps staying on script on artificial intelligence, and that's driving.
So I know because he knows, and I'll tell you why he's doing that, Nick. Because he knows that after he spent a couple of hours with me. He spent a couple of hours with me yesterday trying to tell me that friends of mine and business partners of mine are actually really good friends with him, right?
That's
and
right,
he actually tried to convince me of that, right?
I never said that.
Well, you can say you didn't. I say you did. On air, you tried to tell me.
Talking about
on air, you tried to tell me
actual COVID money.
Sorry, are you interrupting me? Are you interrupting me? Did you be all princessy about being interrupted? So he says yesterday towards the end of the show that Travis and him had this wonderful conversation, and that Travis really enjoys interacting with him. So you know what I did? I actually rang Travis today, and I rang Derek, and I rang a few other people, and said, hey, this is what Jatovy has said, and guess what, Jatovy, as a special present to you, I've asked them to come on so that you can tell everybody right in front of them how well you get along with them.
They're having a bromance, but I got a word for Rick Rosner, who'll love this one. It's anosognosia, okay, which deals with the denial of having a condition that you actually have. And people have schizophrenia suffer from this all the time. Or people have mental diseases. They go, well, I don't have any mental disease. I have a mental disease. Okay. Now we have a problem because we got a guy in the White House who's suffering from anosognosia, which is basically, I've got a mental condition, but I'm just going to deny it.
It's even worse than that because you have two elderly candidates.
Two people suffering from it.
And like Trump had a rally yesterday, and it was fully crazy pants. But
Right.
Biden is getting all the coverage, which pisses off libs. And then the response to that from the media seems to be, well, we've known Trump has been crazy forever. When he holds a rally and says a bunch of crazy crap, it's not news.
Well, speaking
So
of-
Trump's crazy. Trump's crazy, but Biden, who can't even get through a speech at NATO as he's trying to rehabilitate his reputation, there's nothing to see there.
I haven't
The-
seen
the-
the speech.
The fact of the matter is that
wait.
big media and progressives have lied and lied and lied about
come
Joe
on.
Biden. They haven't done that with Trump.
What are you talking about big media? Well, look at Fox who lies. That's that stupid Rupert Murdoch. That was your worst import to America ever. Is you brought this idiot Rupert Murdoch in here who lies.
Hey, he's not even an Australian citizen anymore, so you guys have got him. You guys have got him. You claimed him, he's yours.
One of Jatovi's best friends heard you insulting him, so he has arrived. Because Jatovi does have some great friends from the.
He's got some great friends, yes.
That is Dr. Dan Worthington. There you go. You heard you insult Jatovi. That Jatovi has.
So Dan, Jatovi tries to tell me, and please confirm or deny it. Jatovi tries to tell me and our audience that when you come on, you and him have wonderful, amazing conversations. What's your thoughts and feelings on this?
A bromance.
Let me ask you, did you see the speech, Shaq?
Which one?
The NATO speech.
The NATO
I just read coverage. I haven't seen the speech itself.
I've seen enough of it. Yeah.
And was he stumbly or?
Of course he was. Like I'm shocked that anybody is shocked. The guy cannot formulate a sentence. He's old. He's decrepit. And the best that I think you can get out of anybody is to say, well, he's a really nice person. He's a really warm person. We'll just ignore the corruption and all the money that's been sent to his family.
I read one news report that said the speech was peppy.
Travis has arrived to defend Jatovi for getting
So
tired.
I notice how Jatovi's trying to act like he's not interested anymore. He doesn't want to be part of the show anymore because he sits there. Now, Travis, I assume that you've seen the footage last night of Jatovi saying how wonderful the experiences are between you and him.
That's right. The bromance continues. It's unparalleled.
I have to say, the bit that pissed me off the most was when he started bringing in what happened to my family into the conversation. That's the bit that really annoyed me. So, no, Jatovi and I are not under friends terms. In fact, I think if you remember, Mark, I actually threatened to punch Jatovi. So, no, absolutely not. And it irritates the hell out of me that this happens. So, for those that don't know, I lost a son about 6 weeks ago.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so I do not understand in Australian culture, if Jatovi was here, I'd beat the living piss out of him for it. I do not understand how anyone, whether it's American, English, British, white, Caucasian, Asian, African American, whatever, I do not understand how anyone can ever bring up the family member's disaster in this sort of context. And
but Travis, to be fair in everything, as I recall the conversation from yesterday, and we can go play it and everything, I think he actually brought it up in the context of being a fellow parent and that he actually was giving you sympathy for what happened. And
I don't know how you guys deal with it in America, but in Australia, you just don't bring it up. You let
Mark,
the family
why don't you let Big Mouth stand up for himself? Why don't you let him stand up for himself? He was the one that brings it up. He's the one that sits there and tries to tell me that when I say that guests that I bring on don't want to come onto the show anymore, that I'm making it up, right? That he has these wonderful interactions. So I brought the guests on so he can say it to him directly, how wonderful the interactions are that he thinks he has with them. And what's he doing? He's just pretending like he's not here. The cowardice is so pathetic.
The bit that annoys me the most.
He's on phone calls. He could even be a business call for all I know. He's not talking to me because, as you can see, my phone's right here. So I don't know who he's talking to, but he's on a business call. So I'm not going to.
Oh yeah. How convenient! How convenient! The first time ever that he's done that. The first time ever. It just happens to be when I announce that I'm going to bring on the guest that he's been debating.
To the darn Bulls. For all I know. So like I said, I don't know what the man's doing because, like I said, he's on a business call and all along those lines, and it was not prearranged. So I don't know what he's talking to or who he's talking to. I did have a question.
So while Jatovi's occupied, let's go back to Biden because I didn't see the speech, but I see coverage, and this is the Guardian. A respected newspaper says it was forced. The Guardian is
the Guardian respected.
I understand.
I don't know. I'm seeing reporting that said that he did okay in the speech.
Yes, and The Guardian is an extremely left-wing publication.
All right, so let's go to. I looked at other stuff. Let's see. The Economist is not called the speech fiery. So The Economist is not left wing, I don't think. Anyway. And all right, what should we talk about here? We're down to 3 people.
You always have 4 people. So
Okay.
We were talking about Joe Biden, the fact he's old and he's taken over all the media from Donald Trump because of his stumble on his debate.
Right, but yesterday Donald Trump praised Hannibal Lecter again. Is he making a joke?
Donald Trump's horrible too. But the thing is, it goes back to you're choosing between the worst of the worst that America can present. That's the real problem. So but I think what we do need to talk about is this thing that Jacoby brings up. It's called Project 2025. Okay, this is a pretty interesting group of people from the Heritage Group have put together a paper, a position, which, just like everything, there's actually a lot of good stuff in there. I was going through it, and then there's some stuff that you're just not really sure about in there. But here's what's happening on Project 2025. The entire liberal left have got a hold of it, and they're emasculating it like it's the worst thing in the world. And frankly, it isn't. Okay, if you go through it, there's a lot of good stuff in Project 2025. They start off, first of all, they want to strengthen families. Now, if the left is against families, I would have to agree that Project 2025 is horrible because they're strengthening families. They want to dismantle a huge government state. They don't want the government controlling every little aspect of your life. Now, if that's horrible, then the left is right. It's horrible. But here's what they did. They got a hold of Project 2025 and they go, it's all bad, it's all horrible. Well, read it. It's 900 pages. And in some respects, it doesn't go far enough because they have a lot of good budget cuts. They just didn't cut enough and show how they're going to balance and make the United States.
Yes, but why don't you? But why don't the people are going to take? If people are going to take the very conservative stuff that comes out of the Heritage Foundation, then why not take the really progressive stuff? Well, why not take the really progressive stuff that comes out about transing kids and allowing kids to go on puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones and things when they're toddlers? Why don't you talk about those extreme things? But it's only about conservatives, right?
Well, the thing is, those are more complicated positions than people like to admit. There are people.
What's complicated about it? If you're born a boy, you're a boy. If you're born a girl, you're a girl. Where's the complication here?
Since you have zero medical background, and so does everybody here on the panel.
Hold on a second.
People are actually born with both sex organs.
Yeah, hold on a second.
They are not. They are not. Nick, they are not. And if you want to talk about people that have some deformities, that's a different situation, right? That's not 30% of Gen Z.
By the way, deformities are big. There was something on the internet that some women are born with 2 vaginas and men are born with 2 penises. What do you do with them? I mean, and then some.
Oh, I don't know. You get 2 boyfriends or 2 girlfriends. I have no idea. But
what do you do? And instead, we're making it a political thing when it's really a medical.
No, it's not, Nick. No, again, you must be hanging around with progressives. If you want to talk about like the 0.00001% of the population that goes through this, absolutely, they need treatment. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about introducing this into the school system as if every school has got somebody with this problem, and that's ridiculous.
That I agree with on Project 2025. If they say get it out of the school system, put it in the medical books, that's where it belongs. I agree.
Well, like I said,
what gets me is
Jacoby's off his phone call and everything. So I know that you and Travis, I guess, Dan, we're having.
Oh, who cares? Who cares? We've already seen how cowardly Jacoby is. We've already seen that. Oh yeah, sure he did. Yeah, sure he did.
He was talking about his child and everything. So Jacoby, I don't know if you want to respond or everything, but Travis was upset that you brought up the kids.
Brought up the kids. What kids?
His kid.
The dead one.
There was the kid that passed. Travis's kid.
I didn't bring up any kids that passed. All I said was the same thing you said, Mark, was my heart goes out to Travis for whatever happened to Travis. I've never brought up any kids.
So just so everyone knows, the only person out of everyone on Pod TV that reached out to me after Thorin died was Kim and Shaq. So Shaq actually stayed with me for 5 weeks after the news to make sure our family was okay. They were the only two people that said anything, and I think Dan put a message in one of the group chats that we're a part of as well, and that was it. So there was nothing.
I sent out an email, Travis. If
That's
you didn't get it,
my
that,
final
you didn't get
comment.
it, my
on this one.
apologies.
I think Mark-
Email.
Travis, again, Mark had said something on air. I had agreed with Mark. And then after we're off the show, I told Shaq my heart goes out to Travis for what he's going through. I did not even mention anything about any medical condition. So I'm not sure, and I don't have any contact for Travis. So I don't have a phone number, email, or any way to reach Travis to reach out to say anything, any condolences to him. So I don't know what information or where you get or where the information came from that I had mentioned, because I said nothing about a child or what he's gone through, because my heart goes out to that. But especially in the situations that I go through. So I could never, ever say anything of any poor ilk towards him that way. Because again, my heart truly goes out to him. And I wish, I applaud you, Shaq, for going to spend time with him, because troubled times, we never know what people are going through. No matter how we bicker back and forth here, I wish no ill will on anybody. If anybody's going through anything, I never wish anything bad on anybody, because I can't walk, Dan. I can't walk in your shoes. You can't walk in mine. I don't know what you're going through. So if anything is happening, I would be there for you in a heartbeat if I knew where you were or knew how I could help. So no, I would never say anything poorly on Travis or anything about what he's going through. Again, I've never even mentioned or said a iota of what he was going through. All I did was agree with Mark and say that my heart goes out to him as well. And then off air, I even said the same thing to you, Shaq. So I'm not sure where he's getting some idea like that. And if it is coming from somebody here, I wish they would speak up and be honest about them saying something that I did not say, and just admit it and apologize. No.
Someone else is going to apologize to you now. I've heard it all. I have heard it all. I told you earlier.
I am trying
to say
earlier. Goes out to somebody.
I told you earlier what happened.
Shaq, please.
You just said that if somebody else is here who said you want to hear from
for
them.
a second. You literally just brought everybody on to attack me.
No, I didn't. No, not at all.
So
not at all.
Let me finish. Because you called everybody just because I said Dan and I had a great conversation after the show, which again, I'll tell Dan to his face again on air so it can be recorded everywhere.
So ask Dan. Dan, do you feel like you had a good conversation with him?
I am speaking right now.
Who cares?
You brought everybody on to attack me.
So let them talk. Let them respond to you.
Let me speak. Everybody had their piece while I was on the phone. I couldn't say anything. So now I can. So again, Dan, we've had conversations after the show that were great. And that's all I told Shaq, is that I didn't say we were best buddies and I'm calling you and this and that. All I said was we had great conversations after the show. We've had conversations while we were on the show together, which admittedly, yeah, some of them have been testy. But of course, some of them have been great and fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But Shaq couldn't take that. So Shaq went and grabbed Travis. Shaq went and grabbed everybody he could, just because I said, we've had great conversations. This is how insecure Shaq is with himself. I don't understand.
Come on now.
He could not do that.
Let's
So
be fair
Dan,
here.
You are so pathetic.
Dan,
you have repeatedly told me that these interactions are great when I've told you that they don't come to the show because of you.
The issue I have with you, Toby.
Dan, the floor is yours.
I just want to say
The issue I have with you, Toby, is that you filibuster everyone and you talk over them, and you won't let anybody get a word in edgewise. You show disrespect to the members that come on the show. Frankly, I don't know if you have any background that would qualify you to be on a worldwide news show. I don't know your credentials. You just seem to go to the internet all the time and spout off some left-wing wingnut thing that happens to be there. That it's not an original thought. Is what I'm saying. My point is that I just don't put up with it. I don't. Every time you start in on it, I go off because I can't waste my time with that kind of stuff. I don't imagine the American people and the people around the world would want to waste their time either. And so, I'm not being, disrespectful to you. I'm just telling you what I feel in my experiences with you. I think Shaq sometimes goes a little overboard with you, but that's because he stands up to you. And there's this stuff that is very uncomfortable that goes on. And, and it's at the cost of being able to discuss issues in a fair and balanced way. I feel like the ability of the show to do so has diminished dramatically since you've come on, because we can't express our views in a cogent way because you always interrupt and create problems. So, that's my view. I have no ill will towards anyone. We're not best buddies because we don't know each other that well, and your views are so much different than mine. And that's okay. You could be as you can have any opinion you want. It's just that everybody has an opportunity to share here, and that's what it's supposed to be about. We often get filibustered when you go and then you overtalk us and keep saying no, what, blah. Nobody likes that, and so Jack asked me to come on about this and share my view. I'm trying to be kind about this, and so that's really all I have to say.
So as I stated, Shaq asked you to come on and express your views on me and not world politics, which is all I stated at the beginning, and Shaq took offense to it. On top of that, talking about talking over people, are you going to say anything about Shaq over talking me every time I talk?
He did.
No,
he did.
Again, and what's he doing it again? So we run into this issue because Shaq does the exact same thing, and this isn't filibustering. I'm retorting to what I'm responding to exactly what you're saying. Yes, we have different views. I don't know your credentials, and I'm not going to question your credentials. I'm going to respect you as a person and as your knowledge is there. Just as you respect Rick Rosner, who turns to the side and looks on the internet, just as everyone here goes on the internet to find particular things that we're talking about to back our position. I know you do the same. It's just a normal thing. Just because I may do that and there is an issue there with me, as you're brought on, instead of talking about world politics on a world politics show, we're talking about, or a world news show, we're talking about.
All right, so enough of this. Enough of this.
I was just going to finish my point, but okay.
Rick is highly intelligent. In fact, he's one of the highest IQs in the United States.
I'm also an idiot in a lot of ways.
Jack is a very successful businessman and very intelligent and has worldwide following. It has relationships with the United Nations. I'm a former dean of a law school, doctors in education and law, and masters in education, also a master's in communications and engineering. So, I have a lot of background and experience to draw on. Plus, I happen to probably be the oldest person on the show. So I feel I've lived a long life. That also brings in some perspective about things because I actually lived during a lot of the times that we've discussed. And so, what I don't like is you act like a freaking know-it-all when you really have no basis for that position.
So wait, let me interject.
I don't like it. I mean, you know, it's like you're not qualified to be on this show. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of you taking up the time.
Dan, can I interject real quick?
No, Jamie, I want to say something, and you always go for me about going back and forth, right? So hang on. So you always shut me down.
Said something about me, and I would like to.
You always shut me down. You said something about me. I'd like to respond.
Can I interject?
Yeah, sure. Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Thank you.
It's the Jacoby show.
The show again. We're now on about 20 minutes of who I am, and Jacoby doesn't know. Jacoby is unqualified to be on the show. Yet you stated for a fact, and this is the reason I say it's a fact. The words came out of your mouth. I don't know your qualifications. We're arguing, sitting here. Are you talking about being the dean of this and dean of that? What makes you qualified to talk about medical things? What makes Shaq qualified to talk to complain about there are only two sexes, which when we're talking about gender and sex are two different things.
I've also
and there are
been
multiple
the vice
genders
president
and
of
two
a
sexes.
hospital.
So Shaq wasn't a vice president of a hospital.
But I was.
But
You don't know what medical qualifications I've got, Jacoby. Firstly, Jacoby, you don't know what medical qualifications I've got.
This isn't.
At what point do I get to say something?
You. Just raise your hand like Rick and just play a part of the game. Again, if this is a show about how bad I am, yet you won't let me respond, is this just a roast and I'm supposed to shut up and just take it? Is that what we're doing here? Because you have such an issue with me, Shaq, which my guess is, because again, Travis came on and said his piece. And again, my heart goes out to him. But what has gone on is that my guess is your anger, Shaq, because Dan just parroted the same exact words that you say. My guess is that you told Travis something that I did not say, which is very offensive to me.
Hey! If you're gonna say that again, you'll let me respond. Hey,
Shaq, let me finish my point, and please let Rick go next. Out of being polite, since he's
so you want to be able to respond when your name's brought up, but you've attacked me on something 3 times, and you don't want me to respond. You want to go to Rick.
My point, Dan. Just as I respect your qualifications, respect mine. You may not know mine or may not even believe in mine, but you have to respect mine. I'm on this show for a particular reason, the same way you're on the show for a particular reason. I'm not going to question you and say that you don't know or that you're just ignorant or stuff like that. No, I trust your word and I believe in it. You can leave. He left. I saw he said that he's going. But again, we're now on a 25-minute piece on how bad of a person I am because of Shaq's insecurities about me. He's trying to prove a point. So, Shaq, you still haven't proven anything other than you're so insecure that you lied to Travis, which is extremely offensive. I am sad that you would actually use his what he went through medically to make him an enemy of me. That is truly disgusting. And you say you deal with world leaders. You just really are a horrible person just to use somebody's medical condition to come back and bring spite towards me because you hate me so much. I would hate to deal with you as a world leader or world politician. And I can see how horrible. Don't ever bring up the fact that you say that you work for UNICEF or dealt with those people or anything, because those individuals should know what kind of person you truly are. Don't ever say that you deal with human rights, because honestly, what you just did was using somebody's tragedy to make an enemy and a mockery out of this situation. And with Dan, again, I've had great conversations with Dan. And
so yes, are you going to be finishing your point anytime soon to let me respond, or are you just going to keep going?
I don't care.
Like, should the other 3 of us just drop off and just let you just go for the next 15 minutes?
As the moderator, mute us both. Allow Rick to speak, and hopefully we can move this conversation forward.
Yes, Jacoby.
Instead of staying on
Mark,
this
that's what we should do. Don't let me
ridiculous
respond. Don't let me
25-minute
respond to
topic.
him. Let's
I don't
move
care
to
what you have
Rick.
say. You've
right?
already proven what kind of person you are to use somebody's tragedy to lie to them.
He's going to just keep
because
repeating that
Rick was
point, but he won't let me respond to it.
That is
He'll keep repeating that point, but he won't let me respond to it.
I want to hear from Rick. If you
I
talk,
don't care what you
number one
want.
away.
I don't care what you want. I don't care what you want.
Before I talk, you guys have to finish this, and then we can get back to some other stuff.
I mean, it's done now. What he did was so offensive. I have nothing to do with him on this situation. I want to move on to the next topic.
So you want to have time to respond. You want to have time to respond, but you don't want me to have time to respond. Much of a double standard there, Jacoby?
All right, he's out.
So while he's away because he can't handle any home truths, I'll explain exactly what happened. He told me yesterday, and he said on the show yesterday that he had great interactions with Travis. That's what he said. Okay.
He did. We can go back to the video. It's actually online. He was actually showing me his Twitch channel. I've actually followed his Twitch channel. I've actually watched him play on video games, and he was raising money. Yes, we had that discussion online. When you were not here to sit and lie.
You finished? Can I respond now or not?
I don't care what you have to say.
Well, I don't care what you've got to say, Jacoby. You've made us listen to you. You've made us listen to you. You've defamed my character. You have defamed my character.
Mark,
okay.
I ask you mute both Shaq and I.
No.
We don't need to keep going like this because this is a waste of time.
See how weak he is? See how weak? I hope the audience sees this. Look how weak and pathetic you are. You have just attacked me for something. You've just attacked me for something, and yet you refuse to let me finish.
Shaq, again, you have already proven who you are.
Well, then why don't you let me respond? What are you so scared of? What are you so scared of? Why don't you let me respond?
I'm not scared.
Then why don't you let me respond? Then why don't you let me respond? Then why don't you let me respond?
Why won't this happen off air?
Why don't you just let me respond? You've attacked me on air, so why don't you let me respond? You've attacked me on air. You've attacked me on air.
This conversation forward.
No, I'm not moving anything forward. You've attacked me on air.
This is your personal gripe against me.
It's not my personal gripe at all. No, it's not. No, it's not.
As Kim says, this is horrible.
Yeah, it is horrible, and you've just attacked me, and I'd like to have a moment to respond to it.
Let it go.
No, you let it go. You spent all that time. You spent all that time responding to Dan until Dan left. You spent all that time responding to Travis. Travis left, and now you don't want to let me respond to you.
Let Shaq go, and then we can move on to something.
All right, go, Shaq.
Thank you.
What does Rick ask? Go, Shaq.
You said to me last night on the show, and then after the show, you told me that you got along really well with Travis. When I said to you that many of the guests that come to the show have stopped coming because of their interactions with you. You told me, no, you have wonderful long conversations with Dan. You had wonderful long conversations with Travis. So I rang Travis this morning and I said, hey, Travis, this morning, Australian time. I said, hey, Travis, like Jacoby reckons that you've been having these like long, great conversations and interactions. Is that true? And he goes, what are you talking about? And he did say that you were streaming video games or something a couple of times. He did tell me that. Then I said to him, well, hey, go back and watch last night's show. Now, I haven't said anything about what he went through. I didn't say anything about that. He's obviously extrapolated from your comments about him having a medical issue that affected his family. That's obviously what he's responding to. So please don't sit there and say that I lied to him and brought up his medical issues in order to incense him against you, because that's not true. And if you think it is, I'll just ring Travis right now and get him to come back on and tell you it's not true. Okay? But what you have done is you have taken every single guest that comes onto this network who is centre right, and you have made it so uncomfortable for them that they're not coming. And you won't hear it from me. You won't hear it from anybody. So I asked them, I said, hey, why don't you guys go and tell him this yourself? And so they did.
Indianapolis. I'm actually not an Indianapolis Colts fan. However, I did draft in the fantasy draft that we do, that I'm a part of. I did draft the running back because he put up big numbers when he came off injury. However, then he went back on injury, and then I had troubles later in the season. So the Indianapolis Colts are. I used to like Peyton Manning, and he was a big reason why I like Peyton Manning.
Right. So I want to before this, Shaq was saying, that there are few intersex people. Basically, he said most people are physiologically male or physiologically female. I looked it up, and the numbers are all over the place depending on political agenda. But I'm putting the number of people who have weird genitals at 0.6%, about one person in 160. And then here's a list there's like 10 different ways that you can be intersex. Intersex is different from trans. Trans is saying you are psychologically not the sex that you were born with, but intersex people have no choice but to be trans, because if you're both, that whichever way you go, you're going again, So anyway, there are like 10 causes of weird genitals or physiological intersex. Most of them affect fewer than one person in 1,000. There's one that may affect as many as 1.5% of the population. And that's when your adrenal gland is crazy, and your adrenal gland pumps out all sorts of hormones. And we've all seen the kid where you're like, what's going on there? And that's the kid who looks like they're 6 or 7. They have sideburns. They have boobs already. It's like something weird is happening. That might be adrenal dysregulation.
So Rick, I don't question that, right? That obviously that. But if we go back to, I'm a little bit younger than you, but if we go back to when I was a kid, when you were a kid, how many kids did you know that were trans or had an issue with their genitals? What I'm saying
I didn't know about anything. I was a dumb kid who stayed inside.
Okay, well, what I'm simply saying is this. The progressive talking point at the moment is that gender and sex are two different things, okay? Not everybody believes that, but the progressives are trying to act as though everybody must believe that. Okay, and a lot of people don't. So when they then use as an argument to back up that point that, oh, well, you've got intersex people, you have people with birth defects and that sort of stuff. Yes, that's absolutely true. You do. But those are very, very small parts of the population. Okay. So the idea that you're going to have every Disney film, with a trans person in it, that you're going to introduce they, them pronouns, that you're going to teach kids that there is that between male and female, there's an unlimited amount of genders in between. This doesn't make any sense. And it certainly doesn't make any sense if what you're trying to address is the issue with some people that have deformities or some people who genuinely believe that they were born in the wrong body. Now, historically, this has always been something that males felt, and it was a very, very small percentage of males that felt like this, and it was normally something that you could see when they were toddlers, okay? What we're seeing today is a massive explosion, 30-40% of Gen Z saying that they identify in some way with the LGBTQ community. How could that possibly happen? And why does it only happen in places where progressives are in control? This doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't. There's other issues that have caused this, which are sociological, because you're not seeing it in Africa. You're not seeing it in most of the Asian countries. So why are we seeing this happen in Western countries where we have much more liberal views on these issues? And things like giving prepubescent kids puberty blockers, something that America does, has now been banned largely from all of Europe. So is Europe transphobic all of a sudden? I don't think so. What we've done is we've allowed some children to be experimented on, and it has become very dangerous and has had results that have not been positive. So I think that if we're going to have a conversation about it, we should have a conversation about the massive amount of attention that this issue gets for kids that don't otherwise have an issue, not to talk about, kids that have some sort of deformity or something like that.
Let Jatovy go, but you're muted, Jatovy. Unmute, and then I'll.
Just a real quick thing: the fact that between the difference between sex and gender, that isn't a talking point, and the reference to it isn't based off of there's this random idea. That was a scientific thing that happened that differentiated the difference between sex and gender. And I can bring up all the psychology behind it, but yes, that's not a talking point. That is something that was actually brought on by science and not just an idea. On top of that, when we're talking about things like homosexuality, people kind of deny, but homosexuality happens in nature. The idea that what you're talking about is the idea behind nature and nurture. So which, they're looking into many different things around nature and nurture on that. But if you take your African societies that are trying to put that aren't accepted, where in different African cultures where they're trying to set up laws where you can put people to death for having or for basically being homosexual or having sex.
Oh, that's not true, Jatovi. That's not true. It's not
before
true.
Before we run out of time, let me say some stuff. Like Shaq, you asked, did I know anybody growing up? Growing up, I didn't know anybody. I had 3 friends. Now with the internet, everybody can have hundreds of friends in high school. And the more people you know, the more likely it is you might know somebody. My wife worked in 2 progressive high schools, and there was a crazy amount of a ton of kids are experimenting with gender. Will this destroy society? I don't think so. I think kids will calm down. The kids who are truly trans, they'll find out eventually. If I were in high school now, I would wear nail polish because I would think it would show that I'm a friend of women and maybe somebody would let me touch their boobie. Third point, puberty blockers. Like, puberty blockers have been used because they seem to be harmless. But the more we learn, if it turns out that puberty blockers have permanent ill effects, then yeah, we're going to have to be a lot more careful.
Rick, what we're talking about is parents who know their kids more than anyone else, who are worried about these sorts of things being used on their kids. They're worried about the school system doing this stuff behind their back. And when they bring it up, they get attacked for it. So these puberty blockers, what we're talking about is off-label usage of other medications. So you may be the parent of a child and you don't want your child to be experimented on. What's the problem with that? You can't have any conversation about it because the left just continually attacks people that express concern.
I'm on the left and I just took your point that if puberty blockers have permanent bad side effects, then we have to be.
Just a quick thing. One, Shaq, what you said is not happening. No school is out experimenting on people about using puberty blockers. Puberty blockers aren't even prescribed until later. So when you're thinking about these elementary school kids are trying to stress this and that and the other thing, which is what comes through as a talking point, is no more than a fearful talking point, because that stuff is not happening. And the more you say it, it's factually untrue. So, and then what I'm trying to tell you about the whole gender thing, yes, we all understand the fear that parents have. I'm a parent, you're not. I have a kid with special needs, you don't. I have a daughter who's going through now into high school, you don't. These things, I understand those fears and I can empathize with those fears. And so I understand the fears around that, but we have some very crazy things that get put out into the ethos and get echoed because they're in an echo chamber based on your politics and not science. When we talk about the science, this is why we get into so many arguments, is because if we can't educate around the facts and the science of the situation and only argue about, well, you say the progressive thing, you say the conservative thing, that doesn't help anyone. That's not educational wise.
David, what has happened to the science is it's been distorted, and you know it.
Down the line forward. So again, gender and sex, that's 2 separate things. That's based off of science. Nobody's experimenting on kids. Yes, it is. Yes,
no, it's not. Because the science has been distorted.
Let me bring it up right now.
The science has been distorted. The science has been distorted.
Because you said that it wasn't. I am backing it right now. Gender and sex. Look at there. Yes, I'm Googling. Why in the Canadian Institute, they even talk about gender refers to socially constructed roles, behaviors, expressions, blah, 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 blah. What's the difference between gender and sex? It goes to what science site is this? This is going to CEO.int, Gender Matters, Council of Europe. These are all
Well,
things
well,
that
well
you
done,
can
Jatobi. You could use the
disagree with,
internet. Well
but
done.
it's
Well done. But you can't come up with an
actually
original
proven.
thought. Well done.
You can't
Congratulations.
come up with one. You just said a talking point and argued that the talking point is true baselessly. Back your point. Don't tell me that it's a fact and you can't back it.
What you've done, what has happened is that the
Stop.
science has been
If you
distorted
can't
by
back
lobbyist
it,
money.
then you have
That-
nothing to say.
Well, I would be able to back it, but I can't
Back
say anything, obviously. So you just round out the show, Jatobi. It's over to you, buddy.
All right, so I just looked up puberty blockers, and I got hit, with a number of medically authoritative sources that don't agree with each other at all. The AMA, SAFE, the College of Pediatricians possibly causing these effects. So obviously with these, if you're a family that is looking at this, if you're a doctor who deals in this, obviously you're going to need to spend hours, maybe days researching it to find out what the deal is, because authorities at this point do not agree.
And Rick, just really quickly, we run out the show and everything. It's a topic that gets very much out there and all along those lines, because I can tell you a fact, because even Jatobi will know the person without me mentioning their name, but I have a ex, and I've been bringing up exes lately for some reason, everything, but she actually found out not that long ago that her daughter pretty much went into the trans community, and she is now very much of a trans person. She's actually a well-known musician here, but if you ask her, she has switched identities, and that actually was part of the conversation that was going on at the time that we were dating, because her mother, and this is just my opinion, did not know how to handle it, and all along those lines, because definitely that was something that she had to deal with. And as somebody that was dating her at the time, I can tell you that was even part of our own conversation, was how she was going to put up with that. And folks that know me can probably figure out who I'm talking about, and all along those lines. But it's really irrelevant in the sense of the names and everything, but it is a conversation that
the general principle with all this stuff is, if you're facing issues around this in your family, is to do a ton of research and figure out what the landscape is, and try to figure out what is BS and what's not. And I just the 5 minutes about puberty blockers, I found out that it's a big confusing swamp of information, and that's probably changing every week as we get more knowledge.
You have to figure out the BS, and you also sometimes won't always agree and everything along those lines. I can tell you that me and that ex did not necessarily agree on the way that she handled it and everything along those lines, and they might even be
this kind of goes to the same point.
But we also have some differences as well based on her being.
It kind of comes to the same point, just like with the vaccines. We knew that the health, that the science was changing. We knew that people didn't know exactly what was going to work and what wasn't. Okay, we know with this particular issue that this is something that they're still experimenting on. You can't just say trust the science when the science either isn't there or is not mature yet. As one of our viewers just put in, the DSM-4 said that gender dysphoria was a mental health disorder. The DSM-5 has taken it out. So, I mean, things have changed, but why has it changed? And when you look at these studies in the so-called science, you have to look at where the money has come from, because many of these scientific reports have come from big lobby groups or been funded by big lobby groups on behalf of organizations that are going to benefit from it. The pharmaceutical industry loves the idea of putting somebody on hormones at a very young age, because what that's going to mean is that they're going to have to be on them for their entire lives at a massive cost. So of course they're going to push that agenda. So follow the money. But, again, as Kimberly talked about in one of her comments there, yes, we should have compassion to people that are going through this, especially young people that are going through this sort of very difficult time. But I don't think that showing compassion means that we have to force it into the school system and bully parents that don't want their children exposed to it.
Nobody's being forced. That's where the problem comes into play. Allowing somebody that equal treatment, that equality per se,
here we go.
is not forcing someone else to do anything.
Toby, you've got things like mandatory drag queen story time in schools.
Let me finish, please.
You didn't interrupt, but you haven't interrupted me. Right?
I did not interrupt you when you just had your comments. So again, it all boils back to, yes, the medical professionals. Like we had on a medical professional talking about the vaccines and everything. Mark brought him on. He was a great dude, had some great information. we should listen to individuals like that. And he actually gave us specific places to go to check out about, vaccines and so on and so forth. Dealing with gender, the gender identity and all the other stuff. We shouldn't be, we should allow kids and parents and families the ability to go to their doctor and their medical professional and have these private discussions to allow what's best for their child, because there is no uniform situation. And just as Rick pointed out, there is a bunch of gobbledygook, and we're not medical professionals, and it's going to be confusing for us in the first place. So pushing it to the medical professionals, allowing for your doctor, your physician.
But again, the doctors have been lobbied. We know this from places like Johns Hopkins University.
See you in a couple of days.
Just give time to get out of here and everything. But yeah, the doctors are definitely being lobbied. As I've said on other shows, I'm not a big fan of Ritalin, and that was a drug that was out there and definitely prescribed to a number of young people because of them being hyperactive and other things. I'm not saying Ritalin doesn't have some use, but it also can be problematic, because sometimes I think they overuse it and over prescribe it. So yeah, I can hear both of your points and everything, because yes, they lobbies, and we know we got a number of lobby and pharmaceutical groups even here in North Carolina. So I can understand the point that is there with the power of the lobbies and the pharmacies. But on that note, we'll get out of here, and we can possibly have some more of these discussions on tomorrow as well. And we got Modern Investment. I know Sasha was in the background, but he was probably doing trades and everything at some point and all along those lines. But his show will be coming up at 1 o'clock along with Milan. And I believe Jim Eid will be on there as well. But they'll be talking about some of the things that he loves, including NVIDIA, because he is definitely making a killing off of that NVIDIA. So they'll be doing that at 1 o'clock.